This is Ethan Skolnick for the 5 on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Make sure to check out 5reasonsports.com for all of the latest podcasts in our network, including our Dolphins podcast, 3 Yards Per Carry, our Canes podcast, 5 Rings Canes. They're now going every Friday, and all of our free content, whether it's columns or our news trending material. Also, check out our YouTube channel. You can find that by simply Googling 5 Reasons Sports and YouTube. We've got a double episode coming up for you here. And the first part of the episode is brought to you by Smarty Pants Marketing. It's spelled with a Z, Pants, P-A-N-T-Z, which is a South Florida-based digital marketing agency. Most marketing companies are going to be quick to sell you a tool or a specific marketing service because they don't know how to help you build a strategy. But at Smarty Pants Marketing, the goal is to develop a complete marketing strategy for every aspect of the customer's buying journey. They've got a 90-day growth accelerator program which will set you apart from your competition, increase your sales, and provide you a marketing strategy plan that guarantees growth. Obviously, we know a lot of things are shut down right now, but eventually business is going to come back. Don't you want to be in position to capitalize? You need to visit www.smartypants, again, that's with a Z, marketing.com, or call 954-406-7160, 954-406-7160, or email Alan, that's our friend Alan Levin, A-L-L-E-N, at smartypantsmarketing.com. And now, today's episode.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back. I've got Alphonse, Sidney, and Alex Toledo. Second half of this episode, I'm going to talk to Windy Dees, who's a professor at the University of Miami, who is part of our Minding Our Business podcast. But really interesting conversation I had with her a couple of days ago about the Heat and how what's going on with coronavirus could potentially affect Micky Arison and the team. And there's been a lot of speculation out there. Windy gets right to the numbers, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Before we do that, though, I've got Alex Toledo, I got Alphonse Sidney. I want to talk a little bit of anytime there's anything current with the Heat, we're going to do a podcast on it because there's just not going to be that much news. Today, Erik Spoelstra spoke to some members of the media. Yesterday, Goran Dragic did. We put out the Dragic sound. You can check that out on our feed. And Goran was talking about some of the things that the team is doing. Erik spoke today. I was on that conference call, got to ask Erik a couple of different questions. The focus from Erik, guys, was really about, look, we're in pretty good shape. We're professional athletes. We're coaches. We're really more concerned about what everybody else is going through right now. He really wanted to emphasize that point. I can even tell you that after the conference call was over, I got a message from Erik saying, make sure you emphasize that point. I think that the team does not want to appear in any way that they think their issues are bigger than anyone else's because they know that they're not. And we already know that the Heat have reached out. The Arisons have done quite a bit to help the community. And you can go right now to heat.com/donate, and you can help them with their efforts directly. So, I want to give some credit to the Heat for what they've done. But the rest of the stuff from Erik was about the basketball because we were asking him questions about it. He said essentially, guys, that he's having conference calls with the coaches every other day just to kind of keep their minds engaged. But other than that, they're doing these calls with the players. And he said basically the first few minutes are just the guys goofing off and saying hello and telling jokes. But, everybody's on there, and then he kind of gives them their workouts. Again, he says, I'm not as concerned about the basketball. He also said that, I'm hopeful that everybody's going to appreciate this, that nobody's going to bitch about it. He didn't use the word bitch, but he's not always going to complain about an 82-game schedule and the dog days because we just all miss basketball so much. And he also said, I thought the other thing was interesting was I asked him, there were some guys and players in the NBA who came out against no-fan games before. LeBron was one of them. Do you think anybody sort of reevaluated that? And Erik basically said, our guys would go play in a playground right now for free just to be around the game and appreciate this. How do you think teams should handle this, Alf? Like, what can they do when you don't know if the season is going to resume?
I mean, what more can they do? To get together and have practices, even if everybody on your team has been cleared, to have a practice is just irresponsible. because that's just going to require too many people in one space. These people are still going back home to their families, to their kids. So there's what else can you do? Conference calls, video chats. It's the most responsible thing to do, and it's honestly, as role models, is exactly what they should be doing. They shouldn't be, the Lakers went through a 14-day quarantine. They shouldn't run out and go to the practice gym together, start sweating and banging bodies. And, hey, look, we're okay. It's a bad message to portray to the public. So what the Heat are doing and what I'm thinking of just about every other team is doing is the right thing. Staying away from each other, social distancing. Like, everyone's telling you to stay at home. If these guys did anything but, it would just be super hypocritical. So they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and Erik actually used the phrase, he says, we don't even want to call it social distancing. It's more like physical distancing. He's like, we want to be connected socially, but, obviously, we can't be together at this time. The other thing he said was he's using his barbecue grill a lot more than he ever has before. He's a restaurant, as he said, a restaurant takeout person. So his little kids are confused about why daddy's home so much, because usually he'd be traveling during this time of year. But Alex, before we get into some of the possibilities that have been talked about with the league, I mean, even if they come back this year, I'm just wondering how it's even going to look like a representative NBA basketball product, right? Like, I mean, guys, if guys are off for 2-3 months, like, what is this going to look like?
Well, honestly, it depends on when they come back, and we obviously don't know that. Everything is fluid. I feel like the playoffs won't resume until like what, August, September, maybe even later. I don't know how it's going to work, right? But let's say it does come back at that time. Are they going to play in arenas? Everything would have to be completely cleared by then. I don't know if that's even a possibility. I don't know anything about that. It would be tough, right? And I agree with everything I was said about how they should handle it, right? Just do a lot of home workouts. I'm sure they can get that set up, right, with their resources, and do all the video chat stuff and just stay in shape. That's the best I could say. And then, just work it out one day at a time, because it's fluid. It's fluid.
Beggars can't be choosers here, and I think that's kind of where we've come to with the players. And even Udonis Haslem said the other day they didn't like the no fans idea, but now if that means a way to get back on the court, they're good with it. But let's go through a couple of possibilities that have been thrown out there, and you just guys give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, like if you think that this would even be worth doing, okay? No fans basketball, Alf. Or if that's what it ends up being the rest of the season, are you okay with it?
Mother effer, I will take it. I will take anything. Are you kidding me? Like, I'd watch these guys play 2K right now, and I know they're actually going to do that. Derrick Jones Jr. is involved. Yes. I don't know if I think that might be tomorrow.
It is. KD's the betting favorite. I'm not, only because I think he'll scorch everybody with his fake social media accounts if they don't say so. But that's basically it.
Yeah, he has to be a terror in the chat rooms. But yeah, man, I would take no fan games. Even as media, if we weren't allowed in, I don't care. I'll watch it from home. We can discuss the games. We're not going to get the interviews. We're not going to get those type of things. But at the end of the day, what's most important is that everyone's safe. And then secondly, if there's a way to get basketball back, way to get any sports back and have it be done safely, I'll take it. Like, anyone complaining about it at this point is not living in the same reality the rest of us are living in.
Alex, some discussion got out there about possible 2 out of 3 playoff series. Not the finals, but everything. So not even 3 out of 5, but 2 out of 3. Again, I'll take anything, but my question is this even I don't know. I mean, there has always been this question about baseball when they play that. In my view, that's you play 162 games and then there's a 1-game season to decide who gets to play in the next round. Is it fair? Does it benefit the Heat in any way to play a 2 out of 3?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't even know how it would benefit one team over the other. Jesus Christ. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, if you're gonna go one of these half-ass measures, if you can play 3 games in a series, why can't you play 7, right? And I get what you're saying, but it's like I would rather just wait until it gets clear, because like that's something that I think they should only resort to if like it gets down to the last minute. You get what I'm saying? Like if it's like already October and nothing's been resolved, people haven't been cleared all the way yet, I think it's kind of a half measure. And I would honestly
would it even be a real championship?
The arena thing. Like I wouldn't want to see basketball play without the arena. Of course, I would love to watch that right now. Obviously, absolutely, I would. But I think that takes away. Like, I wouldn't want the playoffs to be held like that. It takes away from everything the playoffs mean. And at the same time, it's like, what does that even mean? We're going to play without – so it's not safe enough to have fans, which I understand. It's a huge crowd, but it's safe enough to have players. And, you know, whoever else is at the arena, I would rather just wait it out at that point. If you're going to do something like that, even maybe do like that tournament they were talking about. You could bring in some revenue, do stuff for everybody that's affected, and you keep the playoffs as the playoffs. You wait for, you know, for whenever they do resume it, even if it's like freaking November or October. Like, I would rather just do the tournament.
But I don't think that I don't think there are going to be fans this year. I think I don't even know that it's a consideration to have. I think the most that they would actually do is maybe let some media in, you know, to cover it, to bring it to the fans, and then have the players on podiums instead of in the locker room. Like, I can see that happening. You know, you don't have to bring in all, because it's not just the fans, Alex, is the thing. It's like, you bring in the fans, you got to bring in all the ushers, right? You got to bring in all the concessionaires. Like, you got to bring in the parking lot attendants. You got to, to me, I don't think fans are, like, to me, fans are going to be off the table. And so if that happens, it's, okay, what kind of a season that you get a legitimate champion, okay? And there's always been this question. Remember, you know, years ago when Phil Jackson used to troll the Spurs because they won in a lockout shortened season? Like, okay, but at least in that one, like, the regular season was short, but the playoffs were real. I kind of feel like this.
Once you start messing with the playoffs, you have an asterisk next to that.
It has to be 3 out of 5 to me to be 3 out of 5 at least. Gives a team where you don't play one bad game and you're done. I mean, can you imagine, like, you're the Bucks, okay, and you're playing Orlando in the first round, and Giannis, you know, sprains his ankle in the first quarter of game 1, and you lose game 1 at home, and all of a sudden you're on the ropes after you just won 75% of your games during the regular season. I don't like it. I think
that'd be actually kind of awesome, but
the pressure would be amazing, but not if you're the Bucks. But the pressure would be amazing. But I want legitimacy. Look, beggars can't be choosers. If that's what it turns out to be, that's what it turns out to be. But the other thing that was talked about, final one here, was Vegas, and basically just, I mean. You know, this will be the first time the players all stand. Doing like Summer League and just putting everybody in the same hotel, or maybe even spreading them out.
Do it at the Mandalay Bay. They have you can put a court in their convention center.
Right. Or they could do it probably at the arena at Thomas and Mack. I mean, where they do.
Doesn't matter how many people. It doesn't have how many seats you have, because there won't be any people there.
No, there won't be anybody there. You could do it at the T-Mobile Arena there too, and just have everybody in the same place. And I don't know what's going to be open in Vegas. It'll be interesting if a lot of things are open and the players are out there, you know, mingling and staying out all night at, you know, I'm not even going to mention some of the establishments because I'll get in trouble. But, you know, basically, you know, you've got basically the entire Eastern Conference is at Spearmint Rhino the night before they're playing games. Would be compelling to see who woke up. I mean, James Harden would be out the first round for sure.
That can't be healthy at this time. So
no, so it's probably not. So I mean, do you like that idea? Basically, quarantining the entire NBA in one city.
No. I mean, actually, I think that would probably be the smartest and the safest. Do it like Summer League. You know, just if there's not going to be fans there's no home court advantage. Who cares where to have teams flying across the country to play in arenas without fans?
Right. Do it for the tournament. Do a tournament like that. I would love that idea.
That would be awesome, actually.
Right? Like, I feel like the playoffs, we should not touch it unless, if you feel me, like if we have to. I feel like we shouldn't make that decision right now. Obviously, we're not making that decision, but I love that tournament idea. They were already thinking about it. Now it would actually make sense. Back then, it didn't really make sense given the context of the NBA. But now, like, with everything going on, the tournament absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. I like the Vegas idea, but I agree with that. I think the playoffs,
like, you're taking away from their family for the whole playoffs.
Right. I mean, how long would that go? How long would that go? Right. Like 6 weeks. Yeah. You can't
listen.
Do that.
Everybody's a little sick of their families right now. So I don't think anybody would mind getting away from their families for a little bit.
Honey, I'm going to Vegas. How long? Until we're eliminated. I mean, you'd have some, but I will. Yeah, I was going to say you will have guys playing harder than they've ever played in their lives, right?
Just so you don't have to go home.
Well, just
get the opposite effect too. Guys who maybe stayed out too long.
Right, but like I said, yeah, I'm saying Harden will be eliminated like in game one. Like that'll be it. Like James will just disappear. Like you won't even see him after game one. That's it. He's played. Where is he? The Spearmint Ryman in the VIP room. That's what's going to end up happening. But I think that idea is interesting to do it as a tournament if it's a little bit shorter. I don't like the 2 out of 3 in the playoffs. I don't. I just think we're always going to look at that as a fake season. And I know Adam Silver wants to give people basketball, and I know that the pressure
would be a lot of fun, though.
It would be fun to watch, and guys would crack under the pressure. You would have narratives that were totally unfair that would stick with players the rest of their careers, right? Like, if a guy has one bad game, like, could you imagine if LeBron had a 2011 Finals game during a 2 out of 3 series, just cracked in game one? What that would be like?
Skip Bayless's head would explode.
Yeah, well, it already has. I wish it would have a long time ago. All right. So anyway, we're after the break here. We're going to get to Windy Dees to kind of tell you about how this affects the Miami Heat. And actually, since we did that interview, there's been even more stuff. Carnival stock is now, I think I said 70 to 75% when I was talking to Windy. It's now down 82% from its high. So 82%. I don't mean to laugh at it because it's hard to look at. And again, people who don't think this is going to affect the Miami Heat's business, I think, are out of touch, and Windy addresses that. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. That's Dutch Valley Farms. What's Dutch Valley Farms? For starters, they're not your average cannabis grow farm. They got deep roots in the 305, and this hometown group of doctors, CPAs, and Silicon Valley professionals have taken their talents from the 305 to the 503 to make you the finest flower out there. How does Miami find its way all the way out in Oregon? Simple, a team with a shared belief in cannabis research and erasing the stigma behind the bud. Today, the Dutch Valley Farms crew is bringing together old school growing practices with new school tech to deliver a consistently clean, high quality experience that you can feel good about. The proof is in the plant. If you want more information, visit DutchVF.com. Follow them on Instagram at Dutch Valley Farms. And now, Windy Dees. Welcome back to the 5 on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Again, I'm Ethan Skolnick. Now, obviously, we're trying to follow what's happening with coronavirus and how it affects sports, and specifically because this is a Miami Heat podcast, we want to find out how it might affect the Miami Heat and the NBA. We've kind of had our own sort of unexpert opinions, which we've been throwing out there the past few days and the past couple of weeks since this started. But I wanted to get somebody who has a little bit more knowledge, or a lot more knowledge, about sports business. And she is the co-host of our Minding Our Business, or Minding Your Business. I always do this. No, it's Minding Our Business. I'm sorry, Windy. I keep screwing this up. Jackson's gonna be so pissed at me. It's MOB. It's Minding Our Business, and it appears here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network periodically. We've got a new episode of that you can find on our feed coming up. But I wanted to talk to Windy Dees. She's a professor at the University of Miami. This is her specialty. And the reason I wanted to talk to Windy is because, in part, first, her knowledge on this, but also this is not something that Jax can really talk about directly because he works for the Miami Heat. So, and that is what is the most concern for Heat fans, at least when it comes to sports, is how this is going to affect the Heat. So, Windy, let's start here. Micky Arison owns Carnival. And obviously, I mean, that's the bread and butter. That's where the money comes from. That's where the family got started. And, obviously that is, in dire straits right now. And, I don't know by the time that this airs whether there'll be some kind of sweeteners in there. But at the moment, the bailout package that, as we speak, we're recording this on a Friday, the $2 trillion package doesn't apparently include very much for cruise ships because they're considered a non-essential business, as opposed to, say, airlines. Is there a legitimate concern in your mind, I've been throwing this out there, that the Miami Heat are going to look different because Micky Arison will just not have the resources that he had before?
Well, you make a really good point, Ethan, about the bailout package and non-essential services, but let me also add some clarification to that for those who aren't as familiar with the cruise industry and business-wise how they're incorporated. Not only are they considered non-essential, but what most people don't know about the cruise industry is that sometimes these ships are not even incorporated in the United States, meaning Micky Arison and all the other cruise line owners operate their business in the United States, and they're headquartered in Doral here in Miami. But sometimes these ships are incorporated in other countries, and that's for different reasons. But if any of the ships business wise are housed in a different country, then they don't necessarily have the same taxes that we have here. Mm-hmm. So you can see how the government, if they're doing bailout, even though the cruise line industry is horribly affected by this right now, if they're not paying taxes to the U.S. government because the ships are not sailing under the American flag, then they wouldn't qualify for some of that bailout money. So there's some financial structure there that also plays into that, but it does affect the fact that Carnival is not probably going to get a bailout package there. So that's a serious problem. And then anyone who's following the stock market right now, if they're looking at what's going on in the cruise line industry, it's extremely disturbing because the stock for Carnival specifically is down 80% over the past 3 months, and stock is dropping terribly. So there's a lot going on financially for our particular NBA owner.
Yeah, it's financial and it's also political, right? Because, I mean, it's very difficult to make a case, I think, to the public that, businesses that have, for whatever reasons, and a lot of it is tax reasons, have flown under the flag of Bermuda, should then be first in line for a bailout here, in addition to the fact that cruises are seen as luxury, as a luxury thing for a lot of people. It's very hard to get sort of, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Middle America, who maybe, has wanted to go on a cruise but not been able to find the resources for it, or just simply, logistically it's not possible to get there from Idaho, to really care about what's going on down the street from me in Fort Lauderdale, where a lot of these Royal Caribbean ships leave from. So it's I think it's political. It's also financial. So let's pivot then. Micky Arison has always, I think, done what's necessary to keep the Heat relevant, starting with the hiring of Pat Riley and then staying out of the way, largely, and being a very good steward for the franchise, but not and this is for better or worse, not a Mark Cuban, not a Dan Snyder, not a James Dolan, not any of these other owners who you hear about all the time. It's just not Mickey's way. But the thing about, the Arisons also is that they've always been very clear that they are not a big market franchise. I remember, I've talked about this on the podcast, but in 2011 during the lockout, I remember Mickey had a handful of us in the offices at the arena to discuss this and kind of where his position was. And a lot of this had to do with the fact that the Heat have always viewed themselves as a mid-market team because of it's a mid-market from a TV perspective. It's not, New York or Chicago or Los Angeles or Dallas, Fort Worth. And so the Heat always got painted as a big market team because they are, a premium destination, because they've managed to maneuver themselves in a way to get premium talent, but they really aren't a big market team. And that has been used sometimes as validation. I don't want to say excuse, but validation for why they haven't done certain things. We've also seen that they haven't wanted to be a repeater tax team. That they've been willing to spend, but to a point. When when there was a question about amnestying Mike Miller, they amnestied Mike Miller. They traded Joel Anthony to get under the luxury tax 1 year. They got rid of Rodney Magruder for tax reasons, so that worked out well because they got Kendrick Nunn. But I guess the thing is, when we're talking about the Heat, and then I want to get to the fan perspective on this and how this is going to affect fans and how that might affect the bottom line. But how have you viewed the Arisons' handling of the Heat? Has he acted like a big market owner, a mid market owner, and how do you think that might change again if his primary business has a stock that's worth 20% of what it was before?
I think you're exactly right, Ethan. I think the Arison way has worked out really well in Miami because what you alluded to, TV-wise, ratings-wise, business-wise, it doesn't matter what Miami looks like on TV. Business-wise, we are a mid-market franchise, and so he's operated in that way, and he's smart to do so. And like you said, the transparency is also what fans want, because when owners and GMs are making these decisions, they want to know why, and he's been very upfront about that. And so I think fans realize that Miami is not New York or LA or Chicago. And, good ownership makes people understand the decisions that they make. Maybe they don't, know everything behind the scenes. But the Arisons have always been, transparent, and they're a franchise first family where other owners are not. And, we know who those owners are. So I think the Arisons do a fantastic job. But I think what fans have to understand right now, and I know people don't want to hear, feeling sorry for billionaire owners in what we're going through. But the reality is that you have some owners who have made all of their money in an industry that's not being impacted right now. But then you have some owners like Micky Arison who are hurting on both sides, because Carnival is being hugely impacted with the cruise line industry, but then the sports world has also shut down. And you have very few other owners who have this situation where their personal business is imploding. A lot of owners right now are able to subsidize their teams and what's going on with the sports world shutting down with the money from their personal business. So, for example, let's say like Tillman Fertitta with the Rockets, same situation. That's a casino restaurant empire that's furloughing 40,000 employees, and that family's feeling it on both sides. And so I think when everyone looks at sports and says, well, these billionaire owners, they just need to float these teams while this is going on. Yes, that can be done for a certain period of time, and good owners, I think, will step up and do that. But there are some owners whose money is on the entertainment side, and then their franchise is on the entertainment side. And this is a tough go at it right now.
No question. And, like you take a look at Dan Gilbert, for instance, who, has basically made his money, off refinancing, which actually, may rise in this climate.
Yes.
And so you're going to have some owners who, again, it's simply luck, I think, in some ways that are going to be better positioned than other owners are. And then we have other owners who I view as behaving badly, like Josh Harris in Philadelphia, until he was quickly rebuked for, the 20% pay cuts for everybody, in the front office and the coaching staff. And that's where I want to go with you here, because I want to focus on the sports business. And this is why, again, I just don't think Heat fans are taking this seriously enough. And I know there's other more important concerns, but it's been kind of downplayed with me when I keep throwing this out there. Like, no, he's got billions of dollars. I mean, it's a different deal. He's also got a lot of liabilities. And I also know, too, that every time, and I can say this with great clarity because I've dealt with it directly, every time that the Forbes list comes out and the Heat are valued at a certain number, there's a pushback from the organization, not to say they're valued as more, but to say they're valued as less, because it wants to be made clear that the Heat are not as profitable as an enterprise as Heat fans or the general public would assume. And so I do think there's going to be a drastic pullback coming, and I want to get to, and I think it's going to affect everything that the Heat was planning here. I think it's going to affect 2021 free agency. I know that they've done some smart things to get under the tax, but I think in terms of long-term commitments for players are problematic. And that's why I want to pivot to the fans, because one of the things we discussed on a previous podcast is, if the NBA comes back this year, I don't think they come back with fans. I just think it's going to be too dangerous. As soon as one player tests positive again, everybody's got to leave. It's not going to work. Or one fan tests positive. I mean, so I don't think it's going to happen. So you're looking at a whole rest of the season, even if it's played without fans. Can you tell me if this number is correct? I've been told that roughly 25% of the NBA's revenue comes from the postseason. Is that about what your understanding of it? Is that close?
Yeah, give or take. That's right.
Okay, so you're talking about if you don't have the playoffs, you're losing that. You lost the last quarter of the season. So even if you come back, it's going to be shortened somewhat. And again, it's going to be probably a TV property only, simply to satisfy your TV partners. So there's going to be a loss. But then there's the other thing, which to me is the chilling effect that this is going to have going forward on two fronts. You keep mentioning two fronts. I think there's two fronts here also. There's the chilling effect of people not wanting to go to public places anymore, which I think is being there's just going to be people who are freaked out. Okay. They're just not going to, they're not going to want to be around crowds as much, I guess, unless they're spring breakers, right? They're just not going to be around crowds. And I think the other thing is just people are going to have less money. And so I don't, those floor seats, okay, for Heat Sixers are not going to sell on the secondary market like they did before. But I think tickets that have not been sold by these teams are going to be harder to sell. And you're going to need to offer incentives to get people back in the building. That's the way I think this trends. There are some who think, well, people are going to be so pent up. There's going to be so much pent up demand for sports that everybody's going to come flooding back. I do not agree with that. How do you think fans will behave?
I'm with you, Ethan. I agree with you, but I hear the same sentiment that you're mentioning. People are in this mode right now where they just think, oh God, when sports comes back, we're all just going to, run out to the stadium and pack the AAA, and it's going to be, good old times again. Now, don't get me wrong. TV ratings are going to go through the roof because, like you said, if people are afraid to go to the stadium or the arena, then everyone's going to be so excited to watch. But I agree with you that the longer this goes on, and now that people have been so much more educated on, how to be, sanitary and how things get transferred so easily, I don't think people are going to rush back into the arena with the same comfort level. But to speak to the economic situation, that I think is the biggest factor that people aren't talking about. And just a couple of days ago, there was an estimate put out there on the ticketing side of the industry that over $1 billion right now of personal capital is tied up in the ticketing industry, where people bought tickets, whether it was season tickets or they had tickets to games or what have you, and that money is not being refunded to fans right now because technically, legally, these games are just considered to be postponed. Mm-hmm. They have not been canceled. And so the way it works when you buy your tickets is that unless these games are canceled, you don't get a refund. And so as long as the leagues label the season as being postponed, they don't have to offer refunds. And a lot of fans are wanting those right now. And you can sense that that urgency is only going to get greater as the summer goes on. And so that just shows you that people are struggling right now, and they would like to have that ticket money back. And the leagues are obviously trying to hold on to that because of the things that we've talked about with layoffs and furloughs and that type of thing. But I am with you 100% that when the doors open back up, number one, people will not be as comfortable health-wise. Yes. And number two, we are looking at, in the sport industry, ticketing revenue and recession type numbers that we saw in 2008.
Yeah, I think it's and after 2008, there was a chilling effect for a couple of years, and there was even, in some ways, a negative stigma to even doing anything fun for a little bit, and there wasn't even a health issue involved. But I remember, Obama took quite a bit of heat because he basically was discouraging people from going to Las Vegas, and looking like you were having too good a time while everybody else was suffering, particularly the financial sector folks. And so I do think that all of this is going to play in. Last one, and you can find Windy and her great work. You find her at Get Dees Tweets. That's GETDEES tweets. And obviously she's a professor at the University of Miami, and we're going to get up that Minding Our Business podcast. So Jax, and I'll get it right, so Jax isn't mad at me. But the last thing, I guess, let's just come to a conclusion if we can. Are the Miami Heat, in your view, let's try to throw a percentage on it. I know it's hard to do. How affected are they going to be from this? Particularly, let's look at it if a season is canceled. Are the Miami Heat, as we knew them, done? And do you think there's a chance that the Arison family's stewardship of the Heat may be over ultimately, and that we may see someone else here running the Miami Heat?
No, I don't think we want to jump that far ahead, Ethan. I don't think we want to paint a picture of doom and gloom. It will get better. And again, when you have these billionaire owners, there's room here to take a hit. I've seen numbers estimating Micky Arison's net worth has dropped about 30% in the last 6 weeks. That's a scary number, but there's still a lot of room there for things to bounce back. And the Arisons have been great owners, and the Heat is one of the most popular, beloved franchises, in Miami and in the NBA. And so I don't think it's a doom and gloom situation right now. And I think the Arisons are going to do the best by the Heat that they can, given their overall financial situation. I just think everyone's going to have to be very patient, and, we're just going to have to be, not expecting the best maybe fan experience whenever you come back. It's not going to be this big party that everyone was getting ready for with the playoffs approaching. And to kind of speak to what you said, I was just doing some sponsorship research this week. And on that side of the business, there's also a sentiment that when sponsors come back and start to put their brand messaging in front of people again, when the games are on, that the message will have to be very sensitive, because people are very emotional right now. And the message will have to be a lot more about giving back, helping people heal, and trying to get people into the arenas for the right reasons, not just so that they can put their advertising messages in front of people again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just watching on TV, watching on CNN. I see a Jersey Mike's ad, which is about helping the community, and I think we're going to be headed for that. I mean, I do feel like you said. I mean, the Heat has been the marquee franchise, and nobody else can argue with me on this. Has been the marquee franchise in this town for the past 25 years, and it's a ever since basically the Arisons and Pat Riley took it over. It's been the model franchise down here. Everybody else chases, even the more historical franchise. And I think that, and I think in sports in general, I think it's been a top 10 franchise. And I think it's very difficult to argue otherwise. But I think they will do the best they can. And the people they have there who market the team or business side, whether it's an Eric Woolworth or a Michael McCulloch, I mean, they will do the best they can. But this is going to be rough. I mean, I think that, like you said, I think the TV ratings are going to be like nothing we've ever seen. Because people are just pent up bored, okay, and they want something to talk about. And we see this with our numbers, our number, not the Heat stuff, but our Dolphin stuff, and some of this is free agency. But we just had the best week on the website we've ever had. I mean, this is, people want the content, at least for now, until they have more pressing concerns, which some of them are starting to get. But no matter what you do, I just don't think the experience in the buildings is going to be the same for a long time. And like you mentioned too, some of these sponsors are hurting where they don't have the money, the resources, and their advertising budgets are going to start to get cut. And so they may not want to do the 10-year package or the 5-year package until they see things, with the team, until they kind of see things, they see a little bit of sun on the horizon. So I do think people need to take it serious. So Windy, really appreciate it. Again, you can follow her at Get Dees Tweets. Thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network.